that detailed approach. What the fuck is going on? This is Winging It, the somewhat whimsical, certainly whirring, decidedly wonky, seldom weighty, endlessly well-intentioned, and wildly witty show about music where one knows what's coming and the other doesn't. I'm in the know, he's not. And this happens in between both proper to ensure you can spend a whole fuckload of time with us. So, this is going to be a doozy, and I decided recently that we should start to do this every half year.
Uh-oh.
So this is going to be an In Memoriam so far for 2025.
Wow.
People that we have lost. And there are more than you can imagine. So I'm going to share who the person is. I'm going to share some facts about them. We can talk about them. Then I'm going to share the people and the artists that they have influenced.
Oh.
So there's a lot to unpack here. Are you ready?
It's been, yes, because I remember many that were very dear to me this year. So
I'm hoping I caught most of those, but if I didn't, I will ask you to forgive me and just provide your your amended. Let me try that again. I will ask that you forgive me and just ask that you provide your amended list.
As an addendum.
As an addendum.
As a rhododendron.
Fuck you. Fuck you very much.
You should see the glasses on her head. It's so cute. Anyway, hello, Flock. We're glad to be back again. And, we had you in stitches with that last pair of episodes, or that last two-part episode of Birds of a Feather. We just hope the stitches have been removed.
Booze of a feather?
Booze of a feather.
Did I say booze of a feather?
I didn't say it. You suggested that I said it. But we hope the stitches are out and that you're feeling well. And we'll try not to be too hilarious tonight because we're talking about everybody who's dead.
Yeah, so it's probably not going to be super hilarious. But
I think your stitches are safe.
I think so, too. So, it goes without saying, last show we talked about him, but this time we have actually lost Ozzy Osbourne of Black Sabbath. And obviously he had a very illustrious solo career. We lost him at 76. An English singer, songwriter, and television personality, most famously known as the Prince of Darkness, and the legendary frontman, one of many anyway, of Black Sabbath, and one of the founding bands of heavy metal. Again, potentially arguable. So let's talk a little bit about the music. So Black Sabbath era, 1968 to 1979, and there were reunions later. So with Tony Iommi on guitar, Geezer Butler on bass, and Bill Ward on drums, Ozzy helped invent heavy metal. So Keys?
Damn. Keys, hetero metal. Keys, Keister. Oh, Kiss. Waiting to see where this...
Keister.
There's a word. If I hadn't worked that in, if she hadn't flipped like that, you'd probably never hear that word again as long as you live.
Keister. What was the other one you used last time? What was it?
No, I said bugaboo. And a subject like this is bound to elicit a bugaboo or two.
Oh my God. All right, let me try again.
Oh, you think I'm editing that? No, okay.
You are editing that. Key Sabbath albums with Ozzy. So we have Black Sabbath 1970 with songs like Black Sabbath and NIB. We have Paranoid 1970 with Iron Man, War Pigs, Paranoid. I mean, come on. Can we get more classic? Master of Reality 1971. Doom Laden, Stoner, Rock Essential. That's what they're saying. And Volume 4, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Sabotage, Progressive, and Heavy. So then, of course, he had his 1980 and onward solo career. And Ozzy's solo career exploded with guitar prodigy Randy Rhoads, creating a new era of metal. And iconic albums include The Blizzard of Oz, 1980, where the famous Crazy Train and Mr. Crawley, Diary of a Madman, 1981, Bark at the Moon, 1983, No More Tears, 1991, Mama, I'm Coming Home. He released over 10 solo studio albums, working with elite guitarists like Zakk Wylde and Jakey Lee, many, many more, of course. And, of course, he was fired in 1979 from Black Sabbath, but he reunited with them many, many times, including their final performance just a few weeks ago. And so I'm going to pause and let you share some of your thoughts. So obviously, legendary Ozzy Osbourne gone at 76.
The whole world's in shock. That's all absolutely anybody has been talking about. And, of course, the tributes are coming from every corner of the music world and the entertainment world in general. everybody acknowledges that it's, the passing of an icon and everything. And I've said this many times over the week as I've wrestled with my own feelings that I've had over the years about Ozzy Osbourne, that he's sort of like the hard rock Elvis, because I learned more about his process. He made up the melodies for the songs before the lyrics were written, but that's pretty much what he did. He didn't write riffs, so I can't credit him with heavy metal, but yes, he was certainly part of Black Sabbath. I could fuss all day about they supposedly invented heavy metal. They did not, of course, because they probably were the first.
They helped invent it.
They brought it into, they added elements to it that, were heretofore unknown. And also they were...
Did you just heretofore?
Heretofore. Oh, yeah.
Did you just heretofore?
That's not a bugaboo, is it?
No, I love it.
Yeah.
I was just shocked by the heretofore.
I often use pretentious words like that.
I love it, yes.
Especially if you put a mic in front of me.
I mean, clearly.
Heretofore unknown. But it was kind of a new thing for for a band to do like 90% at least hard rock. Even at the very beginning, you had songs like Planet Caravan, which are so mellow and jazzy, but the band...
Jazzy, ooh.
Very, very jazzy. It's a gorgeous song, and Iommi's guitar outro.
I mean, Iommi's just an icon. I can't.
You'd be listening to this stoned in the 70s in the afternoon as a teenager.
Would I?
You would, yeah. If you were me, you would. And you'd be lulled into such a peaceful state by the beauty of Planet Caravan. A great vocal by Ozzy, and they phased it too, and fantastic guitar outro. And then Iron Man starts, and you suddenly are jolted awake. And but it's iconic. The best of that was Fairies Wear Boots. But as I said, they were probably the first band who was hard most of the time. However, by 1970, when their first album came out, we had already had Cream, we had already had the Yardbirds, and Jimi Hendrix, as far as hard rock guitar stuff. The Beatles had done two songs that were undeniably heavy metal.
Right.
I Want You, She's So Heavy, and Helter Skelter. And of course, then there's Led Zeppelin.
Right, but we know what a big influence the Beatles were on
absolutely.
Ozzy. Huge.
The members of Black Sabbath sat down and listened to Led Zeppelin's first album and said, did you hear how heavy that was? Because it was I think it was the heaviest thing ever released at the time.
It's still really fucking heavy.
It's heavy now, of course. And you listen to I'm trying to think of a record that came before it that's as heavy, and I can't. So, and Iommi said, "We'll be heavier." And yes, he's right. They were. They certainly, and more consistently too, which is, I think, he has eschewed the name heavy metal himself. He said, "I don't know where that came from. We're a hard rock band." But if you want to call them heavy metal, fine. They're obviously icons and paragons of that. They're a pantheon band for me. They always have been. They were my absolute everything and all in 1975 when I first saw them. So it's been emotional. And like I said, hearing so much about Ozzy, now that I kind of started to resent how the fans would present him as, it's so funny that he's wasted all the time. Let's get wasted. And he fried his brain. I don't think that's amusing at all. However, I will give, and he fell in with brilliant guitar players and musicians who created the heavy sound that he's known for, which he didn't make himself.
Agreed.
But at the same time, he is an icon, and he did contribute enough. And seeing it reminded me of how much the fact that I loved him for what he did bring without overstating it. So he's sort of like a hard rock Elvis, and I certainly think he deserves most of the acclaim he gets.
This is an In Memoriam, so I will be very quiet about, I like Black Sabbath, but I prefer the era without Ozzy. Just because I'm very into what Dio brought. I'm very into what there was just a rock opera god situation going on, and that's really what I like. I know a lot of people love Ozzy, and they loved his vocals. They loved all that. I want to talk about Ozzy as a human being, though, how kind he was, how generous he was to people. There's so many stories out there about how he was with fans, how he was with people who admired him. Obviously a very good dad, I don't know that he is the best husband ever, but they made it work, and they were a power couple till the very, very end. So, and his love for Randy and his ongoing tributes, even that last time he performed, there was a tribute to Randy. That's something really beautiful about him. The fact that he never forgets, and that Randy made such an impression on him, and he cares for him still till his dying day. He cared about this man who he changed his life musically and everything. So I just want to kind of focus on him as a human. And I do think, the Osbournes unfortunately became kind of a circus sideshow. And, it is what it is. I think, they had to write it out because they had a contract. So they had to kind of go with it. And you saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. And maybe it humanized him for some people. Maybe it destroyed the rock god cred he had, because it was pretty much a train wreck to watch from beginning to end. But you know what? Brought them into everyone's home, made him kind of a household name in a different way. So I don't know. I mean, whether it was a good move or a bad move, I mean, I got to know Ozzy that way. I didn't watch it very often, but when it came on, I would watch it a little bit and think, that poor man. But I will say, I'm really sad that he had to go out this way, but I'm glad he went out on his own terms.
Well, yeah, I never watched that show, and I never wanted to. I saw a few minutes of it, and I thought, oh, hell no. I'd rather not know any of this,
Yeah.
But, in fact, Ozzy said that if Randy Rhoads had not come along, that he probably wouldn't be sitting. He said this at the show, that he wouldn't be sitting there. And it's true, unless he found someone else amazing at the time. That was sort of a lightning in a bottle thing. And, of course, Sharon Osbourne does bear a lot of credit for that. She pulled him. It's weird. He left. She says he left a famous band and became bigger, and he did undeniably become bigger than Black Sabbath ever.
I don't know if he came bigger. It was different. He became the focal point instead of a band, and I think Black Sabbath is still bigger than Ozzy, but I think it's different. To
me, much bigger. And I like you said,
there was many iterations of Black Sabbath. I disagree.
I'm surprised. Looking at all the Black Sabbath accounts online and everything, all the people are weighing in. A lot of people, a surprising number of people, like some of the other iterations of Black Sabbath better. The Dio years, the Martin years. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Then Ozzy. So it's not like everybody prefers Ozzy. As far as I'm concerned, their best albums, the ones I like the best, have Ozzy on them, and I love them all.
I disagree.
But they have Ozzy on them. But
I think also it's a formidable time when you heard those. I think that's the big thing, too. It doesn't matter how good the vocals are. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. If you heard it at the right time and it hit you the right way, it's always going to be what you prefer. That's the way it is, period, with everyone. And I think that's okay. I got to choose because I didn't hear it at a formidable time for me.
Heretofore, yeah.
Right? So I heard it when I heard it, and I was like, well, I don't like that. Oh, I like that. Why didn't they do that the whole time? Right? So I got to do that. But had I heard Ozzy at the right time, I'm sure he would have been my favorite. I'm sure, even regardless of all the other stuff. You would have
been hearing him simultaneously with Tony Iommi.
Right.
Because he's always had these amazing guitar players. I don't like any of their styles nearly as much, but he has had great guitar players. And Sharon's one of the greatest managers ever. Whatever you want to say about her, you got to give her that.
That's pushy, formidable bitch, and she does that's what she's supposed to do.
She found him all these bands, and the Oz Fest. Oh, let's get a whole bunch of people together, and we'll name it after my husband, and that'll push his brand bigger and bigger and bigger. And
that's the thing. He became an institution, but
he became an institution. Yeah.
Again, I
don't like that either.
I don't think he's bigger than Black Sabbath. I think he's.
No, the story is Black Sabbath. That's all the way.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, he did what he did.
You had a band, especially Tony Iommi, that could, roll with any different singer. Any singer comes along. They all wrote lyrics except for Ozzy. They all wrote the lyrics. Every singer that Black Sabbath ever had, and he just came up with new sounds for each of them, and that's pretty amazing. Not to take, Ozzy was good at what he did, and
I guess
I got to say, and of course the accounts are pouring in of the warm and kind and funny and amazing things he did and stuff, and he was beloved by everybody. Of course, I never met him, but he was beloved by just about everybody.
He was a showman. He definitely put on a show,
and he loved to, he loved to do what he did. And
he really did love it.
Yeah,
I mean, that even showed in his final performance how much he loved it.
And he did. He hung on just for that, obviously, because you see the picture I showed you earlier tonight, the picture of the band sitting together at their last rehearsal for the show, and I said, does this look like a guy who's going to die in 2 weeks? No, absolutely not. Because that, he was with Black Sabbath again. Of course, that was a big deal.
Yeah, but I think he was ready to go. I think he was like, and I'm okay. I mean, he was in a lot of pain. He was going through so much.
I remember the 70s when there was no Ozzy solo. It was just the band Black Sabbath. If you'd have to know who was in the band to know who Ozzy Osbourne even was, which means a lot of people didn't that now do.
Yeah. Well, maybe they didn't know it was Ozzy Osbourne at the time, but they certainly knew shortly thereafter, and they certainly know now, and he was an important part of music, an important part of Black Sabbath, and obviously just seeing what's going on online, I mean, people are devastated. We all knew this was coming, but it seemed like it could be further off. But here it is. You know, what, 2.5 weeks later? No, 2 weeks later, here we are talking about him, and he's already gone. And
it's hard to believe. It was like I said, the biggest news for the last couple of months was the show.
Yes.
And then I thought that was the news for a while.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, okay, and you know, sooner or later, Ozzy's not well. I didn't know how unwell he was. I thought sooner or later we're going to be hearing about he passed away. It's probably going to be next year sometime.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe a couple years, hopefully. But yeah.
It was terrible. And you know, you see his kids and them crying. It's awful. It really is to see that somebody. It doesn't matter if I knew anything about him, and I did, of course. Who had that kind of effect on people, like when Michael Jackson. Well, of course, I knew him too. So.
Oh yeah.
There are people like that, though.
So many people.
Oh, I would have guessed. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I remember what I was going to say. Back when Black Sabbath was a band and there was no Ozzy solo, I never could have foreseen that his passing would be like the passing of Elvis in a way, where you get everybody everywhere weighing in on the subject and publicly expressing their respects. And it is very similar to that. And I was around when Elvis passed. It's not.
I think it's a little different. This is all social media. People were going to Graceland and leaving flowers and crying in the streets. It was a little different. Well, it was also like the Kurt Cobain thing. I feel like Elvis and Kurt Cobain were different. This is people are able to pay tribute in a way that they weren't, but there's not. It was like the John Lennon thing. All those are very different. There was crying in the streets. There were flowers. There were people getting together and having these little sing-alongs. It even happened when Prince happened. People were devastated. Not that this isn't devastation, but I think it's a different level. I wouldn't consider it Elvis level. I would consider it pivotal.
No, I don't consider it Elvis level either, but I never would have dreamed it would have been as big a deal as it is. Because let's say if Ian Gillan died tomorrow. Now, he's had a God forbid, but he's somebody who's been around since the late 60s, early 70s.
Right, but he's highly regarded.
He's highly regarded, okay, and he was one of the seminal guys. In fact, he was out before Black Sabbath, But
he didn't have a TV show and he hasn't been really sick.
No.
This guy's been in the forefront,
true.
And then he's got a wife who puts him out there and puts him out there and puts him out there.
But besides having a band of his own at one point with his name, he's been the lead singer of Deep Purple forever and ever. Mm-hmm. So that's why everybody knows Deep Purple. Not everybody knows Ian Gillan. I don't think it would be the same thing because Ozzy became a solo name. He became an institution himself.
I don't know if I agree with that because Ian Gillan is... That's like saying people wouldn't know who Dio was. People would... I disagree.
No, Dio, and I was going to say, for those of you who are listening, Dio passed... You probably know. Dio passed a long time ago, 10 years ago at least. But of course, he was known for actually being in several bands, including Black Sabbath. But also a solo act with his name.
Yep.
And he'd been around so much that he was known as, like a premier rock vocalist and everything. And I remember when he passed away.
Ian Gillan is known that way too. I
would like to think so.
I think you're going to be surprised.
I hope he outlives me, but I'd like to think he's valued. 30 years when
he dies, let's say that. 30 years when he dies, let's have this conversation again, and you're going to say, you know what, I was wrong. He's known really, really well. Just because he doesn't have a solo album, just because he didn't bite the head off anything, doesn't mean he's not going to be super missed when he goes there. Everyone knows who he is.
You notice we're unwittingly talking. Everybody we're talking about, Ian Gillan, Ronnie James Dio, they're Black Sabbath vocalists.
Of course they are, because that's not by mistake on my part. But yeah,
I actually picked Ian Gillan, not thinking about the Black Sabbath angle. I was thinking about the fact that he's.
I thought it was all like
the unnamed singer of a big rock band that's been around forever.
He's
like
not
Black
unnamed.
Sabbath. No, well, he wouldn't be unnamed if all he ever did was Deep Purple. He would be. You'd have to know who was in the band. That's what I'm saying.
This is a messy
subject.
All right,
he was Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, we'll unpack this a little bit later, but I disagree. I think he's well known. I think people will.
Hope so.
I don't know if they'll be crying in the streets as there were for Elvis and things, but I do think there's going to be tribute after tribute. The unsung hero, the guy that people haven't talked about a lot, but again, he hasn't been catapulted into the forefront the way that Ozzy was by his wife.
No, because there's nothing wrong with him and he's on tour right now.
Exactly. So I do think he's going to go out when he goes and people are going to be devastated and they're going to have amazing stories of who he was.
They better, because I'd be disappointed if they don't.
I'd say that Ozzy is more of a spectacle too. He's not Ian's not a spectacle.
Yeah. And
it's by design.
The festival angle and the TV angle is huge. That means everybody knows you.
Well, and also if you have a wife like Sharon, everyone's going to know you. And you have kids like Kelly, and I'm just saying. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. So before we wrap up this topic, I want to tell you some of the people that he influenced. I mean, this is not an exhaustive list, but Metallica, James Hetfield, and Lars Ulrich have both credited Sabbath and Ozzy as primary influences. Megadeth, Dave Mustaine has named Ozzy and Sabbath as early metal blueprints, which I think is pretty powerful. Pantera, Dimebag Darrell was heavily influenced by Tony Iommi and Ozzy's vocal delivery. Slipknot, their darker theatrical approach owes much to Ozzy's legacy. Ghost, the band openly blends Sabbath-style riffs with theatrical flair and melodic vocals. Electric Wizard, Candlemass, and Pentagram, key doom metal bands drawing directly from Sabbath's slow, heavy, riff-driven style. But wait, there is more. Hard rock and glam metal. Let's see. Motley Crue toured with Ozzy in the 80s. Nikki Sixx has cited Ozzy as a mentor figure. Guns N' Roses. Axl Rose admired Ozzy's rawness and vocal phrasing. Skid Row, Wasp, Twisted Sister, influenced by Ozzy's blend of melody and menace. Industrial and gothic rock metal. Marilyn Manson adopted Ozzy's theatricality and fascination with darkness. Nine Inch Nails' Trent Reznor. While more electronic, Reznor has noted Sabbath's bleak atmosphere as an early influence. And then finally, Type O Negative fused Sabbath's doom with gothic textures. So clearly a huge mark has been left by Sabbath. You can't separate Ozzy from Sabbath. You just can't. So obviously a lot of those aren't just citing Ozzy, but they're also citing Black Sabbath. But again, a lot of people were influenced by him and Sabbath, and so the legacy continues even though we have lost him.
Somebody we talked about recently who was also obviously influenced was Mr. Ice-T and Body Count, who had actually sampled Sabbath on some early records.
A lot of people, I think, have sampled Sabbath.
Sampled Sabbath, and the only vocalist ever to appear on a Sabbath album except for the lead singer, also Ice-T. So,
all right, so this one was a tough one to swallow. Sly Stone of Sly and the Family Stone lost at 82. He was an American musician, songwriter, and producer, best known as a frontman of the groundbreaking funk and soul band Sly and the Family Stone. He's widely credited as one of the originators of funk music, and his influence extends across genres like soul, rock, psychedelia, and hip-hop. The band pioneered a vibrant blend of funk, soul, rock, and psychedelia, and was notable not just for its sound, but for its racially integrated and gender-inclusive lineup, which was a rarity at the time. So, obviously, the band was formed in 1966. The breakthrough album was Stand in 1969. Landmark hits, do I need to even say them? Everyday People, Dance to the Music, Family Affair, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself. Again. Yes. Musical innovations, integrated band, obviously, as we talked about, fusion of rock, soul, funk, and psychedelia, use of drum machines, and layered production. So that's obviously something that we'll talk about in a minute. Directly influenced by him, so many people. But before I get to the influences, I want to hear some of your thoughts. I know this was a tough loss for everyone. He'd had a rough one.
Yeah.
Sly had a rough one.
Yeah, Sly... This is one of my earliest musical memories, growing up in the 60s, early 70s, listening to Sly. We would go up to this place in our little neighborhood called The Hall and dance, and they'd play Sly. And I mean, these are songs, Stand, by the way, is a beautiful song.
Oh, yeah.
Family Affair. I mean, these Sly and the Family Stone is irresistibly funky and catchy, and it is the perfect pop, rock, funk. There can't be a person who does not love Sly and the Family Stone's music. I don't even understand.
If they don't, I don't want to know you.
If you don't love Sly and the Family Stone, you're either on a watch list or you
Philistine.
should be. Yeah, you're a Philistine. You should be on a watch list.
That's right.
Yeah. It means a lot to me personally. It really does.
Absolutely. No, I mean, there's just so much. I was listening to them obviously earlier, and I just can't get over. I mean, I hear the influence in so much music. I mean, I was like, oh, I hear that, oh, that. And then the samples, so many samples from Sly and the Family Stone. Mm-hmm. So some direct influences. George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic. Clinton has said there'd be no Parliament without Sly.
I was going to say.
Prince merged sex, spirituality, and funk much like Sly did. Prince's band The Revolution echoed Sly's multiracial, multi-gender approach. Earth, Wind & Fire adopted Sly's positive message and horn-driven funk. Stevie Wonder, especially during the 70s classic period, you can hear the influence in Inner Visions and Songs in the Key of Life. Rick James said he carried Sly's raw, rebellious funk energy into the late 70s and 80s. The Rolling Stones' Fingerprint File is a clear Sly-inspired funk track. David Bowie adopted Sly's funk influence on albums like Young Americans and Station to Station. Miles Davis. Sly's groove-based structures influenced Miles's fusion-era albums like On the Corner. Red Hot Chili Peppers combined funk and punk in a way reminiscent of Sly's fearless genre blending. Jeff Beck embraced funk rhythms in his mid-70s fusion period, citing Sly as an inspiration.
Wow.
So many people influenced by this amazing band. So very, very sad that we lost Sly. I know he'd had a rough go of it, but I'm glad things improved for him toward the end, and we'll never forget him. Here's one that probably hit you hard. Rick Derringer, lost at 77. An American rock guitarist, vocalist, producer, and songwriter best known for his hit, Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and for his work with the McCoys, Edgar and Johnny Winter, and later, Weird Al Yankovic, and wrestling music in the 1980s. The McCoys' 1960s pop rock band Hang On Sloopy, 1965, knocked Yesterday by the Beatles out of the #1 spot.
You know Hang On Sloopy.
I do.
I mean, whoever's listening. Yeah.
Johnny and Edgar Winter, 1970s, played guitar with the Edgar Winter Group. Solo career, Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, 1973, his signature song. And I guess he originally recorded that with Johnny Winter. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. And producer and collaborator, worked behind the scenes producing for Cyndi Lauper and Weird Al Yankovic. He produced several albums, including Eat It, Fat, etc., and helped create theme music for WWF wrestling, including Real American, which is Hulk Hogan's theme, who we also just lost.
Just now, and I did not know that. That's a new fact. Yeah.
Interesting. So, what say you about this devastating loss?
Well, in the early days, in the 70s, when I was playing in basement bands and garage bands and things like that, we did Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo was one of those songs that every band who really couldn't play tried to play. And it's like...
I almost choked to death.
Sorry. I mean, timing is everything.
Did you see that? That was almost a mess.
Yeah, I thought, I just screwed up the whole show here. Okay, pulled back from the brink. You played that very well. Sorry, bad timing on my part. But I mean, this is basement bands where I would breathe fire. I actually breathe fire, But we tried to do Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, and of course, one of my favorite albums of all time, Edgar Winter Group, Shock Treatment, Rick plays lead guitar. He played with Alice Cooper on just a track, and like I said, Al Yankovic. He got around, and he wrote amazing songs. And I remember when he put out one of his earliest solo albums, Hang On Sloopy was on it, and I thought, oh, that's cool. He covered Hang On Sloopy. I had no idea he was in the McCoys at the time.
Oh, how funny.
That's an original, or that's a song that we know from them. But Rick Derringer was another absolute legend. We've lost so many. It's incredible.
Who was inspired by Rick Derringer? Joe Bonamassa. He cites Derringer as part of the classic guitar lineage alongside Johnny Winter and Rory Gallagher. Steve Vai and Joe Satriani both have pointed to the raw melodic sensibility of the 70s rocker as foundational. John Five have covered Derringer material and praised his blend of technique and attitude. We also have drummers Tommy Aldridge, Ozzy Osbourne, Whitesnake, played with Derringer early in his career. His high-energy approach fit Derringer's style. And Ted Nugent, inspired by Derringer's aggressive yet blues-based soloing and songwriting. Then we go into hard rock and hair metal bands. Van Halen, especially Eddie Van Halen. He had many influences, but Derringer's fusion of flash and blues was part of the 70s guitar DNA that shaped him. Rat, Cinderella, and Winger took inspiration from Derringer's blend of commercial rock hooks and guitar heroics. Wow, so many people very influenced by Derringer.
I'm glad to see so many people recognize and have had the good sense and the sophistication to be influenced by Mr. Derringer, because he was great.
Absolutely. Now, I think you're going to be surprised as we continue to go how many people were influenced by these people who are influences or mean a lot to us as well.
And a lot of them are coming as news. And, since the fiction we like to perpetuate is that I actually know something, that means this has got to be good information, new information.
Absolutely. So this one's going to hurt, too. Clem Burke lost at 70. An American drummer best known as the founding drummer of Blondie, one of the most iconic bands to emerge from the New York punk and new wave scene of the 70s. His primary band was obviously Blondie, 1974 to when we lost him, with breaks, of course. He also played with the Ramones.
Elvis Ramone was his nickname.
Iggy Pop, the Eurythmics, Pete Townsend, Bob Dylan, the Romantics, and many more.
Wow.
And he was known for his powerful, high-energy drumming that fused punk, pop, and glam rock influences. And I will tell you, of course, as I was going through this, I listened to everybody. Man, he was incredible.
He was incredible.
I can't even, just listening to him on Call Me, I can't. I just, he helped shape the band's, with Blondie, he helped shape the band's tight genre-bending sound, combining punk, disco, reggae, and pop. And obviously he played on their classic hits, Heart of Glass, Call Me, Rapture, One Way or Another, Atomic. And he was very influenced by drummers like Keith Moon and Ringo Starr, as well as glam rock. He combined precision with showmanship, giving Blondie's diverse music a consistent punch, which he absolutely did. Known for musical versatility, switching between punk, disco, reggae, and rock. And he reunited with Blondie in the 1990s for their comeback No Exit, and continued to tour and record with them up till he passed away.
I'm telling you, No Exit is one of the greatest comebacks. This question comes up all the time about great comeback albums. No Exit has to be way up there. It is a magnificent triumph of Blondie to return. And Clem Burke is their sound so much. And you mentioned Keith Moon. It's like there's a certain unrestrained, manic intensity that he would bring.
There's a polish there, too, that obviously I don't think Keith Moon had. I mean, as brilliant as he was, there's this polish, this restraint.
It takes a very, very special drummer to be Blondie's drummer, because you said, as far as being a diverse and eclectic group and everything, it's unbelievable the range that they cover. And every time I listen to Blondie, and I have all their albums, you hear this amazing stuff that you never heard before, or a song, a style. They're sort of like almost Queen, and then doing dozens of different styles. And he just adapts to every one of them as a drummer. It's just unbelievable to hear.
I thought it was kind of perfect when they said he was influenced by Keith Moon and Ringo Starr, because if you think about it, there's some that kind of outside the box thinking with the restraint that Ringo Starr brought to the Beatles. He wasn't flashy, wasn't showy. He just was steady. I feel like there's a little bit of both going on.
Tasteful little fills, and instead of just, I don't want to say Moon was just filling up with a bunch of notes, but he would really flash. But the restraint of Ringo and the lyrical touches of Ringo. That's Clem Burke has got all that,
the Ringo Starr me calling it restraint is very, very kind. So we're going to move on from that.
I'm trying to gloss over the Ringo thing.
Do you know all the people that have been influenced by Clem Burke?
Oh, we're talking about the late 70s, so it's got to be a long list.
So here's some stuff. So these are drummers who cite Clem Burke or show his influence. So Dave Grohl, Nirvana and Foo Fighters. While Grohl often cites John Bonham, his live energy and high cymbal rapid fill styles show echoes of Burke's Moon meets punk approach. Trey Cool of Green Day, his snappy manic fills and flair for the dramatic channel Burke's mix of punk and classic rock theatrics.
I can see that.
Larry Mullen Jr., U2's early punk-influenced rhythm work parallels Blondie's tight yet expressive approach to post-punk drumming. I would call Larry Mullen restrained as well. But
the description of early U2 as kind of punky is very apt.
Very apt. They were very punky, which I loved as well.
I love that too.
Artists and bands influenced by his work in Blondie, The Strokes. Their rhythm section owns a clear debt to the tight, stylized playing of Blondie's classic records. Franz Ferdinand, Interpol, and the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, post-punk revival bands whose rhythm work draws from the tight, angular drumming of late 70s New York City punk new wave led by Burke. The Killers. Drummer Ronnie Vannucci Jr.'s flashy, busy style is reminiscent of Burke's balance between rock, bombast, and pop groove. And finally, Paramore, particularly on After Laughter, their blend of pop sheen with rhythmic sharpness has Blondie-esque elements. And I'm sure the list goes on and on. I just grabbed a few because the show's already going to be really long because we have to talk about all these people. But Clem Burke is a huge loss, obviously very, very influential. Brilliant drummer, and definitely, to me, gone too soon. We should have had him for at least another 15 years. And
that's true of anybody, even if they're not. A lot of these people are not working or were not working. Blondie's working on a new album, in fact, and they were on tour. So Clem Burke is very contemporary and gone too soon for sure.
So here's one: Les Binks, lost at 77. Northern Irish drummer best known for his powerful and precise playing as the drummer for Judas Priest during some of their most formative late 70s albums. Though his time with the band was relatively short, his impact was enormous, helping to define the sound of classic heavy metal drumming. And he was a drummer for Judas Priest from 77 to 79. And he had a background in jazz and rock, which brought technical finesse to heavy metal playing. So that's the real difference, I think, that you hear. He really brought that finesse, which very different.
Wow.
And Les Binks joined Judas Priest just before the recording of Stained Glass in 1978 and stayed through Hellbent for Leather, Killing Machine in the UK, and the live album Unleashed in the East. So albums with Les Binks. Sin After Sin, 1977. He played as a session tour drummer. Stained Class, 1978, considered one of Priest's most influential albums. Killing Machine, Hellbent for Leather, 1978. Unleashed in the East, 1979. Iconic live album showcasing his tight, explosive drumming. And he did have a couple of notable contributions. He helped co-write Beyond the Realms of Death, one of Priest's most beloved and dynamic songs. And he's known for the fast double kick work, sharp fills, and crystal clear precision, all before drum triggers and computerized timing.
Wow.
So very, very formative. So it was important to mention him because he did really shape Judas Priest's sound going forward. So he really helped to refine it and define it, and obviously was on some of their major albums from 77 to 79.
You know, I did not know the name. I have Unleashed in the East is an incredible live album. I have it. I did not know Les Binks. I didn't know the name. Sad to say, that's a group that I know, like, Tipton and Downing and, Halford and a couple of, but I don't know the whole band. And, wow, I did not know he was gone. Incredible drummer. And it's important that you said, first you said Les Binks. I think it was Jar Jar's brother.
No.
Come on, you were all thinking it too.
We weren't thinking it.
But I did not know. But the bringing the swing kind of element that is so important for a hard rock band. You look at what Bill Ward did for Black Sabbath, and notice when he left after Heaven and Hell, and Vinny Appice came along. I'm sorry, it was not the same. The swing was gone. It's a great album, but Bill Ward just had his little thing. And Les Binks, I'm sorry I didn't know you, sir. Well, next time I listen to Unleashed in the East or Stained Class, I will.
Or Sin After Sin or Killing Machine. Hellbent for Leather. I mean, all of those feature him on it. So
those are a lot of classics along.
Absolutely.
With, and I did not know that was the man. So
let's talk about who he influenced. You're going to be surprised potentially. Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden. Maiden's early speed and Binks's work in Priest share a direct lineage in precise galloping patterns. Clive Burr, early Iron Maiden. His style energetic with rapid fills in a locked-in feel echoes Binks's drumming on Stained Glass and Hellbent for Leather. Phil Taylor, Motorhead.
Yeah.
Though more chaotic, Taylor's double bass and speed evolution was part of a wave Binks helped start. Dave Lombardo from Slayer has cited Judas Priest as foundational, and the speed and precision Binks brought to metal clearly laid the groundwork for thrash. Charlie Benante, I guess, from Anthrax developed the blast beat concept from roots planted by Binks and similar late 70s speed-inclined metal drummers. And then, of course, Lars Ulrich from Metallica has acknowledged Unleashed in the East and Stained Glass as influential. The tight, high-energy live metal was a prototype for Metallica's early vision. Then we go on to my area here. Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater has expressed admiration for that early drumming, and it was a precursor to progressive metal drumming. Scott Travis was a later Priest drummer, and he was technically more aggressive, but he built upon the Binks' precision and finesse, especially when he was playing live. So that's a lot for somebody whose name you didn't really know, but is on some of the most iconic albums that Priest has to offer.
I am deeply shamed.
Yes. All right, next up is David Johansen, lost at 75.
No, not Buster Poindexter.
An American singer, songwriter, and actor, best known as the frontman of the New York Dolls, one of the most influential proto-punk and glam rock bands of the early 1970s. He later reinvented himself in the 1980s as
Buster Poindexter.
Right, a lounge singing alter ego famous for the hit
Hot, hot, hot.
Exactly. And he is known for gritty vocals, witty lyrics, and a flamboyant stage presence. One of the key figures in the development of punk, glam, and garage rock revival. So New York Dolls, 1973, Personality Crisis, Trash and Looking for a Kiss. And then, of course, 1974's Too Much, Too Soon. Then there were also later reunion albums. One Day It Will Please Us to Remember Even This, 2006. And then after they initially broke up, he pursued a solo career with a bluesy rock and roll vibe. And then in the mid-'80s, he rebranded himself as Buster Poindexter, a pompadour lounge singer character known for humor and showmanship. And so obviously the Poindexter era, Hot, 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 1987, Caribbean-style party anthem. Appearances on TV and Cabaret and Saturday Night Live. He played up the irony, crooner charm, and retro vibes. So, yeah, that's a little bit about him. So, obviously, I do like the New York Dolls. So, I think this really sucks. But it's so interesting because I did not see him as 75 in my mind's eye. He's forever that age he was, when he came out as Buster Poindexter in the 80s. So, I didn't even know. So, I was really sad when, he passed away. But, yeah, what are your thoughts?
I haven't seen a picture of him in a long time, so I remember him as, the Buster Poindexter age, or at least heavily made up in movies, because he pops up in movies all the time. He was in Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he was the cab driver.
Good in that.
He was a ghost.
Yeah, it was good.
He was really good. He pops up now and then in movies, and of course, those of us dinos who are around, the boomers who are still around, remember the New York Dolls and seeing them on, like, Don Kirshner's rock concert and the Midnight Special and stuff, and and there's no denying that they are indeed at the very forefront of all of the stuff that we would go apeshit over, all the glam, all the Bowie, and all the Sweeten and everything, and absolutely right, and a real rock and roller for his whole life, and it's a sad loss.
It definitely is, and so many people are influenced by the New York Dolls. So the Ramones, obviously, he and the Dolls were spiritual and stylistic forefathers of the New York punk scene, and Joey Ramone cited him as a key influence. The Sex Pistols, Malcolm McLaren managed the Dolls briefly, I don't know if you knew that, and took their image-style blueprint back to England to form the Sex Pistols. And then Patti Smith, right? They all came up in the CBGB scene and all of that, so they were influential on each other. Motley Crue, Poison, Twisted Sister. The entire 80s glam scene took cues from the Dolls because they had that gender-bending fashion, obviously, and sleazy attitude, which makes me laugh because definitely lots of sleaze going on. Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose was a fan of the Dolls' dirty rock aesthetic, and Slash has named them as a formative influence. Also, the Strokes, his DNA is all over their detached vocals, retro styling, and New York City cool. The Yeah, Yeah, Yeahs. Obviously, there's the theatrics, right? They owe some of that to the Dolls' blend of sleaze, glam, and punk. I love the fact that everyone's saying sleaze. It's the best. The White Stripes. Jack White has openly acknowledged the Dolls' influence on garage revival aesthetics and attitude. Performance-driven artist David Bowie. Though both inspired by each other, Bowie was strongly drawn to the glam meets garage energy, that he championed the Dolls early on, right? So he was totally in. Iggy Pop, a close contemporary, both shared an aggressive, theatrical, sexually subversive approach to fronting a band. And then finally, Nick Cave, his early birthday party persona had echoes of Johannesson's sneering charisma and bluesy howls. That's a lot of influence.
My dear flock, tune in next week for In Memoriam, Part 2. This has been Winging It, a presentation of Birds of a Feather, on What the Flock Radio.